Hello and welcome back. Today we are looking at the new Time Lord. So if you're a Doctor Who fan, get your sonic screwdriver out of your asshole and, I don't know, play with it. Although that's probably what it was doing inside your asshole in the first place. Anyway, Limbo has received a rework, and if you were like me, the pre-rework Limbo, you never really cared too much. I'm not going to say he was a bad frame. I'm not going to say he was a good frame. I personally couldn't really get along with it. That's just my opinion. So for the rework, for me this is a welcome change. His one ability hasn't really changed too much. It's just no longer single target. It does hit a group of enemies if they are within proximity to each other. Still a bit annoying the fact you've got to come out of the rift to hit an enemy with it and then go back into the rift. His second ability is a bit of a biggie. It literally freezes time. This can be from bullets, which if you're watching is all these weird lines flying about all over the place. It's still a little bit of a troll factor because you can literally stop your allies from shooting things. If you are one of those where you're getting annoyed by the limbo that stops you from shooting things, get your melee weapon out. Problem solved. Okay, quit whining. Third ability is still the same rift torrenty, massive increase in damage, helpfulness, and then there's cataclysm. And to be honest, the way this now works is amazing. Its damage is now calculated by 10% of the total amount of enemies within the cataclysm. So hopefully I can now word that a way that is a bit better and easier to understand. So if you have 10 enemies inside the cataclysm, they have 100 health each. When you close it, it will take 10% of their total health, which would be 10. It adds it all together, and when you close it, that's how much damage it will dish out. So obviously I've just given random numbers there for ease of calculation. So you've got 10 enemies at 100 health each. It takes 10% of everything, so that would be 10 health. There's 10 of them, so 10 times 10 is obviously 100. When you close it, it dishes out 100 damage and it kills everything. This obviously will not be the case for everything, because I don't think there's a single time when there's an enemy that actually has that lower health. But you know, that's just easy way to explain it. Right. The next change really is the way in which you get in and out of the rift, and it's purely by pressing shift or V or whatever it is you guys switch to. Doing a roll. Do a barrel roll, which is now more of a do a quick little shift. I don't know how to actually call it, although it is the shift button. He just literally just does a little jolt forward and he's in the rift. And then you can do a jolt again and he's out of the rift. He has honestly become an absolute nuke of a frame. He works really well in a lot of situations. I'm quite enjoying running Heracon with him. You do still get people that aren't really happy to see you, but you know what? Screw them. You're Limbo. You can stop time. Screw it. Now, when I started replaying Limbo, I was a bit confused by a lot of the elements, particularly how the Cataclysm works. Like, your power strength, that affects how much damage the Cataclysm does when it's opened. It affects how much damage that Cataclysm does to the enemies while they're inside it, but it doesn't affect how much damage Cataclysm deals to enemies when it closes. That is done purely by the amount of enemies inside, their max shield, health, etc, etc. So power strength, you could argue, is quite pointless on Limbo, because that's the only real thing that deals damage is when they close, and it scales really, really well, which is kind of annoying, and I can see this getting nerfed thanks to, you know, DE and the way they work things. But honestly, I quite like having power strength on him, purely for the fact that if you can get a bit of a mesh going on with his continuous cataclysm augment or whatever it's called, you will need power strength in there, because a lot of the damage that you'll be dealing will have to come, for me anyway, comes from cataclysm itself being opened, the damage over time while they're in there, blah 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 blah, and it can basically sustain cataclysm by itself, but you'll need cataclysm to be dealing damage as well as your teammates, yourself, to be dealing a lot of damage. So, you know, despite there's been a Toncore nerf. Maybe get the dust off the old Toncore and start spamming that around again for a bit. Anyway, I personally think he is a lot better like this. I find him a lot more viable in a lot more situations. He's not just some spy god. But the build I'm using is Energy Siphon, Power Drift, Transient Fortitude, Constitution, Overextended, Streamline, Prime Continuity, Intensify, Stretch, and the Augment Rift Torrent, which you can get from Cephalon Suda. Now I'm using Energy Siphon along with Zenuric, and then you being in the Rift, the amount of energy regen you get from that, for me, pretty much negates having a flow whatsoever. You can literally spam your 4, and by the time you've recast it, you've gained all that energy back. If you're a bit better with your energy management, you probably could put a Blind Rage on just to get a little bit more damage over time coming from Cataclysm if you like keeping it open, if you're not a nuki person. If you are still trying to get used to him, maybe not go with Overextended, maybe put Vitality on just because it's a lot more health and I'm not exactly running any sort of survivability mods. If you're not bothered at all by range, having Overextended will probably be a better idea than Stretch, and you could also then put the Cataclysm Augment on as well in place of Stretch, so you've got Rift Torrent and the Cataclysm Augment. I do find this would be a pretty worthwhile thing if you could get the right balance, but it's a lot of energy management you would have to do with that. Now the second build I am running is max range. I've also got Lightning Dash in there, and the reason I've got that in there is because of where you enter the Rift is now tied to your shift or your roll. I find that kind of messes with my movement mechanic a little bit, because I like to do a few barrel rolls mid-air, but I also like to try and stay in the Rift so I don't die. So I've added Lightning Dash just to get me around a little bit quicker. Anyway, that's me. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Ta-ra!